Alright, hello everyone and welcome back to another video. So today we're going to be doing a nice little discussion video, and I've got a very interesting topic. It's how to make AoE4 a complete game. Before I hop into the topic, I want to say that I personally think this video is going to be relevant to both AoE2 audience and AoE4 audience. And I know that a lot of you guys watch my channel and are really just focused on AoE2, but you might find some of the points I bring up in this video exciting and interesting. Because should these changes be made, it might make AoE4 a little bit more appealing for you guys and might actually push you to try out the game. And, you know, there's obviously a range of opinions and emotions that come when we discuss AoE4. Personally, I think it's a good game, but I feel like there's a lot of things that are just blatantly wrong with it or could use like immediate changing. And should these changes come in, I feel like it could be much more exciting as a player, a viewer, and just a fan of the franchise in general. So from that perspective, an AoE2 fan might enjoy this video and hear some of the thoughts that I have to say. And if you're an AoE4 fan or AoE4 player, you might agree with some of the things I say and you might disagree and you might have other things to bring up as well. I'm trying to keep this video as open-ended as possible, so feel free to contribute in the comments by both agreeing with me, disagreeing with me, or just adding on with different points and different opinions. This is just my opinion in this video, so feel free to add on to this. And I've spoken to a few other players to get some inspiration for some of the points I've brought up as well. All right, let's hop into it here, and I'm going to quickly show you guys what I'm working with. So I've made a list of things that I want to talk about. The discussion point is going to be how to make AoE4 a complete game. So again, I'm not saying it's like, it was released an unfinished game. I'm merely saying that there are some things wrong with it that could make it a better game and could make it feel a bit more complete. I'm going to be focusing on multiplayer, and I'm not going to be talking about balance. So this is the list I made. Quickly pause the video if you want to see them. If you don't want to watch the full video, you can get a gist of what I'm going to be talking about. But I will elaborate on all of these points here, so feel free to sit back, relax, and enjoy. And once again, obviously, your feedback is more than welcome in the comments as well. All right, so I've split them up as you could have saw. I've split them up into three categories, my points that is. The first category is the things that need to be changed right away. All right, these are immediate changes that, in my opinion, need to happen and are essential to keep the game exciting and keep it from just becoming very stale very fast. The next category I have is next step. All right, so that's the things that should happen after the immediate fixes come in. These are some of the things that, in my opinion, should come in to help add some quality of life to the game and to the community. And my third category is things that should happen down the line. And this is simply things that could come in down the line to make, I use down the line to explain down the line. These are things that could happen in the future to keep the game fresh and to keep it from just kind of becoming stale after a long time and keep it from getting boring pretty much. So that's kind of my three categories. Let's hop into it. So the first category right away, the first point I want to bring up is the waypoint from the sky. Like, when you have a TC and you right click the ground to bring the villager out, that little lightning thing that comes down, that's terrible. Like, that is just so bad. It's counterintuitive. It's not very clean. And I personally think it has, that should just easily get replaced very quickly. So it's also not very accurate. Like, you put that gathering point on the sheep and it just feels like sometimes the villager comes out and it's not on the sheep and it's just weird. So that needs to be changed. There's a lot better options to do that are more clean. And I would just look at the AoE2 version where you just right click and a little flag comes down, and that's perfect. No one complains about that. So definitely a lot of things you can be doing better with waypoints there. That's point number one. The second point is to do something about water gameplay. Now, I don't have all the answers here. I'm not going to sit here and give you guys an exact explanation of what I think needs to happen. I don't really know, but all I know is that water gameplay right now, just not as exciting and not nearly as fun as land gameplay. And a lot of the players that I run into on the ladder seem to agree with me here. A lot of the viewers I have on stream seem to agree with me that water gameplay is just not nearly as exciting. Okay, so maybe this could be to include abilities for the ships to make the micro a bit more exciting, maybe a bit more interactive. Maybe make the ships cheaper and less powerful, so that there's more of them on the field that could add a little bit more excitement to the water battles. But we'll see. I mean, there's a lot of options that this could be taken into. Or that could be taken into consideration. So I'll leave that a bit more open-ended, but I do know something needs to change with the water gameplay, and that's not even including the balance. We know the balance isn't very good at the moment. All right, so the next thing is the look of the mountains and the camera perspective. So I don't know exactly how to discuss this, but in maps where there's big mountains, every time you hover over it, your camera gets super zoomed in. So it's supposed to create the illusion that the mountain is in your face and it's a big object. but it ends up just feeling like really weird. And also the look of the mountains itself is kind of I don't know. I don't think that like the graphics on them are like that great. So something with the camera perspective and the look of the mountains needs to change, in my opinion. This is more of a minor point though. All right, the next thing is the fraction of a second delay on unit commands. Now, I don't know if this is lag, and if it is, we can disregard this point. But for example, when I play League of Legends, I can move my character back and forth like 20 times, and it feels so smooth. Like I'm playing on like 40 or 50 ping, and it's just so smooth. Like there's no delay. It feels like super smooth, and it feels super clean. But when I do that with my army of knights, for example, in AoE4, every time I click back and forth, there's like a 0.3 or 0.5 second delay that makes it feel super clunky. And like, why is there a delay? Is this like a hard-coded delay, or is this like lag? If it's lag, I don't know if there's anything we can do about it, but if there's like a delay on units that's being like implemented here, that's terrible and makes the game feel way more clunky than it could be. So yeah, I don't know if you guys have felt that, but definitely something that I'd want to see fixed as soon as possible, if possible. Next thing is the hitboxes. Hitboxes are really hard in this game. Like they're really hit or miss, I should say. Like sometimes you can click units properly and sometimes you just can't. Sometimes I'm microing and I right click literally my opponent's army, but then it doesn't land on a unit and I end up walking towards the army. Also, when you try to like click a sheep with your villagers, sometimes it could be hard to find the right sheep, or like a deer with your scout. Like hitboxes are super weird and I want to see them optimized a lot more. That's a big point right there. Like as far as competition goes, and a lot of the competitive players can agree with me here for sure, that hitboxes need to be on point, or else there's going to be some very drastic or very, very bad misclicks that will happen in important moments. So that's probably the biggest point that needs to be changed immediately. Next up is a point I'm not going to talk about too much because they already said they're going to work on it, customizable hotkeys. I want to add a further point though. I think we should have more hotkeys. Like we need to like select all TCs, select, select markets, select all this, all that. Like we want to have as many hotkeys as possible. I'd rather have too many hotkeys and let the players take off the ones they don't want to use than have too little. Next up is matchmaking. So I think because water maps are not the best right now, matchmaking needs to let us pick maps, or at least pick map styles. Like maybe create like 3 categories that you can queue up for. Like all land maps, hybrid maps, and then water maps, or something like that. You know, create some categories, create some map bands, something to make matchmaking a little bit better, so you don't just have to queue up and then get water maps that you don't like, care to play. Next up, I think we need is a ranked queue. This is pretty straightforward. Ranked queue and a leaderboard in game is like such a must. And a lot of people come to my stream and they don't even know that the quick match has like our leaderboard attached to it, and it's on like a different site. But a lot of people don't know that. So having a rank queue and a leaderboard is like so essential for like people to come in and just want to like grind and play, because that could be the main motivator or main motivating factor for a lot of the players that are new to the game to try to get better. All right, next up is better features for casting and less glitches. I don't know if you guys have ever spectated a game, but there's like some weird glitches that go on with the colors, and there's also not a lot of features for casting. Like switching between players is super tedious. Some of the information on the UI is not as clear as it could be. A lot of things for casting isn't optimized, and I'd really like to see that, because let's be honest, for tournaments, most of the people watching, they're not watching point of view. They're watching a cast. And let's say for the casual viewer that's only going to tune in for tournaments here and there, they're not going to be like watching every day. It's important to have a proper UI and a proper casting setup in place for them to keep them to stick around, because like if things are off, or if the casting isn't as exciting, like compare Capture Agent AoE2 to AoE4 UI, if the UI isn't going to be as elegant for them, it might turn them off and it might prevent them from coming back. And a lot of the viewers will be watching through a cast and not through a point of view stream. So I think that's a pretty big point to have. I also think a better way to find games to cast is needed. Right now I have to accept like everyone as a friend who wants to cast my game, which is just like nonsensical. So finding games to cast needs to be improved as well. So hopefully those can be changed in the near future as well. Next up is the way they show the units in the queue. So right now I'm gonna use AoE2 as an example. When you select an army in AoE2, it shows you all the units in that army, and that's so crucial, because like let's say I have an army of knights, right? And I select 40 knights. One of them is low HP. I want to select that one guy. In AoE4, if I select 40 knights, it shows me a picture of the knight and it has the number 40. I can't select individual units from that selection group. So that's like, I can't locate the low HP without clicking them individually. So That for me is a terrible thing. You need to be able to select units out of your big selection group, select individual units, and be able to pull them back. AoE2 does that well. I'm not sure if I'm explaining it properly, but in AoE2, basically, if you select 40, you see the picture of each individual unit on the bottom of your screen or on the UI, and you can easily, from that, left-click the one that's weak and pull him back, pretty much. So very, very important to have going forward. And then the last thing I have on the things that need to be changed right away is if there's a unit in a building, I can't see the HP of that unit. That building. It's so frustrating. Like, let's say my opponent has a TC, right? I'm ramp pushing him. It's a crucial moment of the game. I don't know if I want to commit. I want to see the HP of the town center. I see the little bar, but I want to see exactly how much HP it has. I click on it, but he's got a scout garrison. I can't see the HP of the TC anymore. Like, that's terrible. That needs to be changed as soon as possible. It's important to see the building HP to know if you want to commit more or to not commit more. And that's something that's an easy fix that should come in as fast as possible as well. All right, so that's it for the points I have for the right away. Again, feel free to agree or disagree with any of the points I mentioned, and feel free to give your, feel free to add to these in the comments below as well. It's really just open-ended and as constructive as possible here. All right, so for the changes that should happen in the next step, so in the near future, but not necessarily immediate. I personally think we should allow visual mods that can help clean up the game and make it a little bit more, a little bit easier to see what's happening on the screen. There's a lot of things right now that are just there for aesthetics, and sometimes for competitive players, we want to have the least amount of aesthetics as possible and keep it, as clean as possible for us to play as optimally as possible, simply put. All right, the next thing is how units interact with each other. I'm going to keep this open-ended because I'm not exactly sure what's going on here, but like sometimes my units bump my own units. Like sometimes I'd have like an army of knights and like I'd be fighting something and then like my scout comes in and like pushes my knight away to like come attack something. It's really weird, but like the way units interact, the ally units interact one way, and then I cannot block my enemy units. Like I can't push an enemy unit, for example. So the way my units interact with my ally units is different than how they interact with enemy units. I'm not if this is intentionally that way, then disregard this point. But if it's not intentionally this way, I think we should make units interact with other units in the same way, probably. So if they're able to go through enemy units or just pass behind or around the side of enemy units, they should be able to do that for ally units as well and not bump them everywhere. But again, let me know about this one because I'm not really sure if this has happened to you. But I've definitely seen my own units bump my own units, which is weird. Next thing is more of a small thing, but it's being able to pick your color in rated games or in quick matches. I think it's nice to have diversity in colors. A lot of people like to pick certain colors, like 1 to 8, but we're stuck with blue or red. I like blue, I'll be picking blue, but I do think it's a good point to allow people to pick their own colors. And it's a really easy fix from what I can see. There's always the friend-foe color scheme to keep you in blue and your opponent in red anyway, so picking color should have no impact or no negative impact on those who don't want to pick their color. All right, next up is private games that don't appear on quick match history. This is important for tournament prep and for the top players. I had to make a new account just to get some tournament practice that people can't spy on because I had to keep my history share open so people can cast my games. So I'd want to have an option where I can have a private game that people cannot watch to practice for tournaments, because right now the only way to go around that is to make a new account, and that's pretty tedious. This is more of a small point though for later. And the next point I have, and I think this is a pretty important one as well, is a way to private message friends. Maybe make it so you cannot message them if they're in game, but maybe if they're in like online but not in game, it could be a nice feature to have to message your friends in game, because like this adds a little bit of a feel of community. And like imagine if you want to set up a team game, right? And you meet someone on the rank ladder. Now you'd have to like exchange like discords or like contact information to message them elsewhere. But I feel like having an option to message them in game can be really nice. Like you see them online, you're like, yo, want to play some 2v2s? Oh yeah, let's do it. Let's hop in. That little sense of community, in my opinion, leads to the game lasting longer and feeling more inclusive. Especially in this day of lockdown where like, going outside is not as much of an option these days as it was in the past. And I know the lockdown's easing up in a lot of countries and a lot of cities, but just in general, a lot of people might not have the option to be interacting with others, in real life. So having the option to meet people in game and like interact with them as much as possible, in my opinion, and this might sound a little sad, in my opinion, that's really good. Like that's really important these days, and it feels like having that community feel is going to be a very positive change going forward. So that's something I propose, and I'd really like to see that. In fact, I think that's a good change. All right, so that's it for my points that I have on the next step. Now, down the line, I have a few things that I want to talk about, and it's a bit more open-ended here. I don't feel too strongly about this, but let's talk about it. So my first point here, a few more civilizations down the line could be really good. Like right now we have 8, and I love the fact that they're drastically different, don't get me wrong. But let's say you want to play 4v4 with different civs. You literally have to pick all 8 to play a 4v4 with different civs, right? So, 8 feels a little too little. I would want to go up to like 12, maybe 14, maybe 16 max. Like 16 max feels like a good thing to end up on. But if you can get a couple DLCs that could come in, like either free of charge or like a small price, I don't know. I'm not going to discuss that right now. But if you can get a few more civilizations that come in, that could be really healthy to keep the game fresh and to add a little bit more variety to what we see. So, going up to 12 feels pretty good. 16, like I said, max feels pretty reasonable to me. Let me know what you think about that as well. The next thing I want to talk about is units going up on stone walls. That feels extremely gimmicky to me, and I'm calling it right now, something weird will happen with that. Like, that's going to be exploited in one way or another. I just feel like something about that just doesn't sit right with me. I've watched streams where, like, sometimes a siege weapon goes up on a wall and then comes down, and, like, it just feels so awkward to, like, imagine when the game gets figured out and, like, people start abusing it to, like, go up on a wall, shoot, go down. Go up, shoot, go down. Like, something will feel like something, that whole mechanic feels really off to me. So I want to just say right off the bat, something should probably be done about that. Or if it gets abused, then something needs to be done right away about that if it gets abused. So keep that in the back of your minds. I think that can probably get to the point where it gets abused. It feels like a very gimmicky mechanic. All right, the next point is a random civ option. Listen, the civs are drastically different, and I personally think that random civ is not entirely needed, but I do think it's not a bad idea to have it. At least as an option to like hide what you want to pick, right? Like you come into a lobby, you go random, and then like, okay, let's decide what we're gonna pick, and it kind of is that placeholder civ. I don't know. It feels like it's a decent option to have as well in certain games if someone wants to be like, okay, I challenge you, I go random, and you pick whatever you want. So something could be nice like a random civ option. I think it doesn't hurt to have. And then my last thing that I want to talk about, and this is a very important topic, it's do we want to have constant balance changes like in League of Legends? And if you guys aren't familiar with League of Legends, this is how it works. Basically, if something's overpowered, it gets nerfed. And then the thing that's underpowered gets buffed. And then if the thing that was underpowered now becomes overpowered, that's fine. For the next month or next 3 weeks, that's going to be the meta. People will adapt. Pro players will adapt. Some of the more casual players will still adapt because they want to play with what's strong and what they see on streams and whatnot, and that's going to be the meta for the next month. And then after that, it gets changed. Whatever is too OP gets nerfed, and whatever is too weak gets buffed again. So let's say right now we have like the French that's too strong and the Mongols that's too strong. We nerf both of those, and then we buff Delhi and HRE. Now HRE and Delhi become really strong. We play that for a month, that meta. HRE and Delhi have to adapt. The players have to play them. And then they get nerfed again, and we have to go back. And now, maybe, I don't know, freaking Chinese is strong. So, do we want to have these constant balance changes to keep the game fresh, to keep the meta switching, to keep the players adapting? Or do we want to have the, I would say, AoE2 balance where we're trying to make it as perfect as possible, where the strong civs stay the strong civs, but they're just not as overpowered. So we tune them down a little bit, and we try to keep it so all the civs slowly over balance changes become equal, and they all have the strengths and weaknesses. So what do you guys prefer? Do you prefer on one hand to keep the meta changing, keep things like strong, but it changes what's strong between each patch? Or do we try to find that perfect balance over time and keep nerfing and buffing things slowly to try to make it so that all civs are consistent? It's very hard to do that, but I think over time it could be done. So that's my 2 propositions for balance changes going forward. But again, very open-ended. I don't even know which is better. Feel free to let me know in the comments. And that's it for this kind of video, or this video in particular. Let me know if you guys enjoyed it. I'm never sure if these videos are going to be good or bad, but hopefully you enjoyed it, and hopefully it's been useful and at least interesting to listen to. So that's it for me. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.